Yes. Okay, sorry. But okay, can.
Okay, so my name is Kiran, and I am a lawyer by profession. I have my own IP, intellectual property law firm. It's a small firm, but I've been doing this for almost 10 years. And I also have a firm in the US. So I've been managing the firm for a while now. And even though I have a small team, there's still a lot of managerial type work, operations work that I have to deal with as someone in charge of the business. So it's always a challenge to juggle your work and playing that managerial role. But I think it's possible if you have good, effective time management skills and EQ as well. Okay, so shoot with your questions.
Owen, you want to start?
Okay, one moment.
Sure.
Okay, so what formal or informal training have you had as a manager to manage work within a team?
Okay, so actually I didn't really have a formal training, but one of my first few jobs was in a large law firm back in 2000. And I was the HR manager and then also promoted to general manager. There was no specific training. I was not trained in human resources, nor was I trained in general management. But it's one of those positions that you just pick up the role and learn on the job as you go. Would it have helped me to have had that training? Yes, I think it would have helped me, but just the situation of my working experience was such that I was asked to do the job by my bosses, and I said, okay, you don't turn down an opportunity for more money. So I said, okay. Not realizing the extent of the work, but I think, in my mind, I thought it'd be fine to manage. So I had like a team of 8 people that I directly managed. But in general, as human resource manager and general manager of any company, you are also someone that is in charge of the staff and employees as a whole, right? So yeah. So my answer is I didn't have training, but I trained myself on the job.
Understand. Okay, so my next question is how do you encourage staff to work in a team and why is this important?
I think it's important to first get everyone to understand that we have one goal, right? When you have different people from different backgrounds working together in a team, like my department was administration department. Our goal was obviously to ensure that we don't, you see, we were also like in charge of cost centers and cost elements. So it's important to inform the team members, what is your goal? When we do a job, it's not just about going to work, earning a salary and going home. You will have a better working environment when you have a joint or common goal and you actually enjoy the work and you help each other, right? If everyone is just doing everything individually, then it becomes very difficult to achieve that goal. So a lot of times I have conversations and talk to the team. You have to have some of these motivational speeches sometimes when you can sense that morale is down. For example, closer to in the beginning of the year, everybody's waiting for salary increment. And sometimes you don't get the increment that you're hoping for. So then you need to, as a boss or a manager, you have to then motivate your team and explain why you didn't get the increment you're looking for, what's happening with the company. Maybe the company is not doing well. So it's always having to talk to your team and making sure that they understand what's going on, as opposed to just keeping everybody in the dark and everyone just doing their job.
Understand.
Yeah.
Okay. And for my last question for me is in your opinion, what is the value of working in a team?
The value is you don't burn yourself out. Because when you have a
Ah.
team, everybody has their own skill to offer in that team. And so you can delegate and you can work together. And by doing that, you don't burn out. So, like, if I was to handle everything that is under the realm of my department, I will just burn out. Even though I feel I could do the job, no problem. But that's not the way that it should be.
Mm.
Everyone has a special role to play, a skill to contribute, and that should be tapped into. And that'll just make everybody, much happier. So it's very important so that you don't burn out.
Really understand. Oh, okay. Next would be Bam.
Yeah, my question is, how did you manage teamwork during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, because we are a small team and my current job, we do work from home quite a lot. We were doing that quite a bit. We basically didn't have an issue because we were always talking to each other online, whether it's on Zoom or Skype or Teams or whatever. So it wasn't a big difficulty. I think in situations where you are thrown into an environment where you're not used to it, you can still adapt. For me, because we were already working from home, it made it easier, wasn't so difficult. But if we're talking about, say, a company where there's like 8 to 10 people that you have to manage, for example, if it was in my old firm, I think it would have been a more difficult adjustment. And also, it made it easier because my firm is paperless. So if you're working in a job where you have to be in the office because you're tied to your work is tied to your computer at the office, or a lot of it is paperwork, I think it would have been more difficult. But I was able to because we were already used to working from home and using online methods of communication. So
Okay.
that's my issue.
So having been in this field like for quite some time, can you tell us what is your biggest management strength and weakness?
My biggest management strength, I think, is effective communication. I think I communicate well with my team or the team people that I work with. Weakness, I think, is hesitance to delegate
Okay.
because I always feel I do the job better than then
Yeah.
it becomes difficult to delegate, which is the worst thing you can do.
All right.
So
My next question is, do you have people coming from different cultures and diversities in any sort of your team? And if yes, how do you manage the cultural differences within the people on your team?
okay. Currently my team, we are a small team, but we're all women. We culturally, I mean, if you're talking about gender, it's not really a culture, but still it's something to consider. I think we had one intern that was a male. I think we made him feel pretty comfortable. We didn't make him feel, we didn't talk about woman stuff or, in terms of culture, because for me personally, I always grew up in a multiracial Singapore. We grew up in this environment. We've always been respectful of our Singaporeans' culture. I've never had that mentality to see anybody differently. I just see them as Singaporean. So if in terms of culture, if somebody has fasting, for example, I'm mindful that we don't eat in front of our colleague who's fasting. Those are things that you have to know. And being in this multiracial society, it's something we already are ingrained in us, we know how to be respectful. So it's a lot of it is being respectful and being aware. Just be aware. It doesn't have to be open awareness. It could be subtle, but you have to be aware of people's cultural differences and just be respectful.
Understand.
I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Ivory, I think it's your turn.
Yes. Okay. When faced with making a decision, do you rely more on your intuition, emotions, or logical thinking?
I think it depends on what is that situation I'm facing, but most of the time it's a mixture of all three. You know, when it comes to work, I try not to just go based on intuition or emotions, because when it comes to work, a lot of it is logical. If it comes to people management, then yes, there's the emotional aspect, right? So when I'm dealing with someone else, I try to deal with logic and emotion. When it's my own personal issue, then I do look at it through intuition. I think intuition works a lot for your own personal challenges that you're facing. Like, should I stay in this job? Do I think logically whether I want to continue working in this job, managing the team, or do I think based on intuition? I mean, it's difficult to say per se, but I would go also a lot on intuition for that kind of decision, right? But whether to fire someone because they're not performing the job, you can't have emotion. You have to think logically, because at the end of the day, if I'm working for a company and that person isn't doing the job he or she's supposed to do, I have to not put emotion into that decision and think logically.
Understand.
So, yeah,
Wow.
it's not easy, but yeah, you you have to do certain decisions based on logic.
Wow. Okay. My next question is, are there any ethical or moral challenges that stand in your way whenever you have to make an important decision?
Ethical and moral. Yes. I mean, in my previous job as HR manager in the law firm, there was a period of time where the firm wasn't doing well and there were a lot of retrenchments going on. And I was obviously, the decision was made by the bosses, but the one who had to convey the message to the person that I had to terminate was me. And it was a very difficult, because the termination also was not like a regular notice period termination. It was the same day. So the same day, person is literally retrenched the same day. So you go in the morning thinking you're going, and then in the evening you're out of the job. So it was very difficult because I knew what was happening that particular day. That person was going to be let go. So I had a very ethical and moral, because I don't think that's the right way to do it. And one of them was actually worked for the company for 20 years. She just became too redundant. She was in the IT department. She became redundant. She wasn't willing to train herself to improve on the IT skills that was needed. She was very old school. The company had to let her go. And I think because she was in the IT department, they couldn't afford her to keep staying in the company for another month, because she could have taken information or used information. She could have stolen information. So for that reason, they had no choice but to let her go the same day. So for me, I felt torn because she was kind of a person that I, colleague that I worked with that I knew well. At the same time, I didn't like this thing where you terminate people the same day. We had to do that for weeks. And so that was a very difficult thing for me to have to do, to call someone in and say, okay, today's your last day and this is your check. Yeah. So the ethical and moral, but this happens. And sometimes when you're in that role, you have to just bite the bullet and do it. So yeah, sometimes there's a lot of conflict.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it became so bad that every Friday, because I would have to call the person at 5, everyone in the office was waiting to see who's getting the 5 o'clock call every Friday.
Damn.
Yeah. And when they saw it's me calling, they were all terrified. Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. Then at some point it stopped. Yeah, it's so bad.
That's scary.
This was not lawyers though. It was just the staff. These were not lawyers, because you see, the lawyers are the people in the law firm who make money. So there's no real reason to terminate or to retrench a lawyer unless you're really bad at your job. but these are staff. Staff are always cost centers. Any company where you are in the cost center, where you are person, where it's more on a cost for the company, it's more easier to let that person go, as opposed to the one who's actually able to generate revenue for your company. You're normally not the one who's gonna be the one to get fired. Okay, sorry, next question.
No worries. Okay. The next question is, between ethics and morality, which of the two do you feel is more important when making a decision? And can you provide us with a situation when you face situations like this?
Ethics and morality.
Mm.
I mean, it's hard to separate ethics from morality all the time. No, sometimes it's intertwined, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so a situation where I'm having conflict between the two, is it?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't have a situation where I've had like very strong conflicts between my ethics and morality. Other than this whole retrenchment thing that I used to do, that was the only thing where I felt torn. But otherwise, I don't think I have a situation where I'm faced with this particular conflict and I had to choose between one. Yeah.
Understand.
Do you have like a scenario where you're thinking of, which I could maybe help address? Like, when you say ethics, what are you referring to? Like, what kind of, you must have had a reason to ask this question, right? Like any idea, like what when you say ethics and morality?
Because like sometimes whatever's ethical is not moral, whatever's not moral is like ethical. Do you know what I mean? It's like interchangeable sometimes.
Correct.
Okay, give me an example. What are you talking about?
I think your retrenchment situation was quite.
Yeah, it was that
Yeah.
situation.
I mean, ethically, was it the right thing to do? No, I don't know. I mean, you could say no because it seems cruel, but if you look at it in a company's perspective, they just, when you let somebody go, the company can always say, okay, look, I give you 1 month notice, you can continue working for 1 month. But it's very different when the company is telling someone that we're going to fire you or you're going to be let go in 30 days. As an employee, there's a fear that the employee is going to do anything to sabotage. They could steal clients in the 30 days, they could call the clients, they could steal data, information, and then you're there sitting there waiting for 30 days to go by. That is why when employers let employees go, it's always immediate. They will pay you 1 month salary, ask you to leave. Okay. But when it's employees wanting to leave, we said we give you 30 days notice because I mean you don't say I'm leaving today itself because you don't want to pay the employer the 1 month salary, right? Obviously not. You have to reimburse the 1 month salary. So you have to work the 30 days or 2 months or whatever is the thing. And usually if it's an executive position, the person's role is so serious that you can't just leave immediately and leave the company in the lurch. So that's why ethically and morally, I mean, it the right thing to do is give people time to adjust, that they've let go so they can find another job. But if you think about it, that employee can do so much damage.
Understand.
In that 30 days. That's why the company lets them go, and the company can afford to pay you 1 month salary or whatever retrenchment package, right? As opposed to the other way around.
But
so
can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So do you feel like has your feelings changed? Like, because at the beginning it's very tough for you to, like, let's say, retrench someone, right? Like pass them the notice. But as you did it across this span of time, do you feel like
it became
has
easier?
your heart, like, has it hardened enough to, like, just look them straight in the eye and just pass them the notice? No.
Every single person was tough. Even the one who didn't do the job properly and actually had it coming.
Understand.
Because you can't, you have to do the job professionally. because you're in that role, you're being paid to do a job, you have to do it well. Even if it's the worst type of job you have. At the same time, it doesn't mean inside you don't feel torn or feel bad. You know what I mean? Because people also do things because they don't want to lose their job. I'm a manager. Although I'm a manager in my role, but I'm also reporting to someone. I don't want to, and now that I'm on my own and doing my own business, it's still difficult.
Understand.
It never becomes easy to turn somebody's life upside down.
So you can also say that these events did not change how you think and how you process things also.
No, I think it makes me more human.
Okay, I understand.
I mean, I give you all another thing that I will just share. I was a HR manager. Okay. So one of my jobs is making sure that staff are punctual. But I was not punctual. No, I was not punctual. I was always late, and I even did stuff as how to not avoid getting caught by my boss. And the worst thing was this: I would tell my staff, "Can you come and get my handbag?" Because we had 3 levels. Okay, my office was on the 24th floor, the conference room 25th floor, and 23rd floor was another floor of lawyers. So I would go to the 24th floor and tell my staff, take my handbag in to my room. Then I'll go to the 25th floor and pretend I was already in the office. And I know I'm a manager, but because I was afraid of getting caught by my boss. And one time, would you believe it? The lift opened and it was my boss on the 24th floor. On the 24th floor. That's when I realized, you know what? It doesn't work. And they will call me, this particular boss will call me at 8:31. I was supposed to be at work by 8:30. 8:31, I see there's a missed call. And you're like, oh my God. And then I told myself, okay, but there are a lot of people who come on time. They come at 8:30. In fact, some of them come at 8:15. But they don't do their work until 9:30. You know why? Because they're making coffee, they're going to the bathroom, putting on makeup, or chit-chatting, or whatever. And they don't really start work until 9:30. Whereas for me, I come 8:45, 15 minutes late, but I start work straight away. So then I'm at a dilemma, I'm at a crossroads. So which is it? Right? So in my managerial position, I have to ask myself, right? Is it okay if someone's 5-10 minutes late and they come in and sit down and start the work, as opposed to someone who comes at 8:30 but doesn't do shit until 10 o'clock or 9:30? They're on the computer, surfing the web, chatting with their friends. So morally, ethically, right? You're supposed to be at the work by 8:30. So do I then call the person who is late for 10 minutes, but is very diligent and does a great job, and scold them or tell them, hey, you need to do better? Or if my boss were to tell me I can't be late for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, as opposed to one that comes at 8:30 and doesn't do any work until 9:30 and is literally earning an hour's worth of salary for doing nothing. So food for thought, right? What should you do? So extra info, sorry. Okay, next question.
Okay. How would you define your management style when it comes to your team?
Management style, I think I try to be more of a friend as opposed to boss. So like now my business partner, she used to call me boss, even though she's my business partner. I keep telling her, I'm not your boss, I'm your colleague. And yes, in the old job I had 8 people under me. I was their boss, but I don't like to be seen as the boss. I like to be seen as someone who is they could come to anytime to speak to me about anything. So more colleague. I just have a different role than them, but that doesn't mean that I have the right to talk down or treat somebody lesser than me just because I have a higher position in the company and earn a little bit more. Because I still think that sometimes I've also had a situation where I've worked with colleagues who the only thing lacking was the education. Nothing else. There was nothing else that was stopping them from being the same as me. The only reason why, for example, my colleague Marnie here, my partner, who's not a lawyer, is because she doesn't have a law degree. But in terms of the legal knowledge, the legal skills, the writing to the clients, everything, she's right there along with me. Maybe I'm a little bit, have a little bit more skill on certain levels, but in terms of, so I try to not make her feel like I'm more than her.
Mm.
And I think when you do that, you will have a very good and effective team, and people will respect you as as a manager.
Okay.
You know? Yeah.
So the next question is, talk about a time when you had a problem with an employee's behavior. How did you resolve the issue?
Okay, so there was this one employee in my old job. His job was more like in the mailing, but he did a lot of mail handling job, and he would go missing during office hours. Sometimes he's out of the office. I can't remember, was it mail handling or basically administrative, very administrative job. So once or twice I was doing my rounds in the office and I caught him sleeping on the job in the corner of the office space, right near the bathroom. There was like a section of the office where it was very corner. It was one of those private cubicle office toilets. It was in the corner of the building. So I just so happened to be walking by and just looking at stuff, and then I saw him there sleeping, and he was sleeping quite a lot on the job. So I had to call him in and tell him to stop doing that. Even if you have finished your job or for the day and nothing else to do, you don't go and sleep. You find something else to do. Find something you could be useful in. Moving furniture or rearranging something, or come to me and say, hey, I've done my work. Do you have anything else for me to do so that I can pass, do? So, you must always be mindful that you're being paid to do a job, right? You don't cheat anybody in the sense that if he's sleeping, he's been literally being paid to cheat, or even people who go to smoke during office hours, right? You're literally leaving your role to go and do something that you're not being paid for. So yes, so I have had situations like that where I had to talk to them, to tell them, to explain to them why what they're doing is not right. Okay, even if he finished his job, that doesn't mean you go and sleep. What it means is find something else to do. And if they say, well, that's not my job, well then, see, when someone tells you that's retaliatory, then you have to then educate them and say, no, but that's not how it should be. Even if it's not your job, you're being paid to do a job from 9 to 5. You can help out, or you can at least, then maybe we have to think of a different role for you.
Okay.
So yeah, so as a manager, you are constantly having to not just manage your staff, your work, everything, but also making sure you are doing right by the company that you're working for.
Okay.
My bosses obviously didn't know that, but I dealt with it. Yeah. If they knew, the big bosses would say fire, immediately go. No chance.
Okay.
Any other question?
Yeah, last question. We have like 7 minutes left. How could the organization, how could you and the organization overcome any communication challenges that you might face in the virtual workplace?
You mean like on virtual workplace? What do you mean by virtual workplace?
I mean, you're
working online, like
mostly working online, right? So like, like if there are any communication challenges that arise because of the fact that you're working online, because you're working virtually, right? How would you like solve that?
Okay, so my job, most people work by emails, right? Usually when you send instructions by an email, typically you should be able to know what to do, right? So if it's a virtual situation and you find or you find the work isn't being done, you call, you talk, do a video call or something. If you're not stuck because of COVID and you're having to stay home because of quarantine, then you go and meet the person and have a chat with them face to face. I think very important to remember when you have a negative situation, you need to be mindful of the person's dignity. So if it's one particular person, you talk to them one-to-one. If it's a general team type relating, then you do a pep talk to everybody, not singling out anyone. You can give examples without naming anyone. The idea is, again, not to remain respectful, put your point across as you need to, without scolding people, being firm. There's a difference between being firm and scolding someone. When you're firm, you don't necessarily make the other person feel embarrassed. But when you are scolding someone, it's always going towards an embarrassing situation. So you don't want to do that. Even if it's one-to-one, it can still be embarrassing, right?
Yes.
So always be mindful not to do that kind of thing. Yes, sometimes we lose it. If we lose it, you apologize immediately and then walk away from the situation. Right? But yes, in a virtual environment, it's much more harder to ensure people are doing their jobs, but you must also have that element of trust. Like I work from home, my colleagues work from home. I'm not constantly at their beck and call, oh, are you doing your work? Have you done this? Have you done? No. It'll be seen. You can see from the emails you send out what's happening. You can tell. And if you feel that there's too much silence from a particular employee for too long, then you ask them, hey, what's going on? Are you okay? Something like that, yeah. But at the end of the day, work is still work. If you are very friendly there's a balance in everything. You can be friendly, respectful, but if you're in the position of authority, you still have to be firm. Okay? And you cannot think like, oh, well, it's not my company, I don't care. Like when I was in that big size firm, I was not a shareholder. I was not earning anything other than a salary. But I know that if I did a good job, they'll promote me or give me a good bonus, or there'll be something I'll get out of it. Right? So, but also it's a growth, your own personal growth. So every single job I've done since the time I started working till now has helped me to be the person I am in managing my business today. So,
Okay. Yeah.
Any other questions?
That's all the questions we have.
Okay, I hope it was helpful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you
Good.
so much.
Okay, if you all have any follow-up questions, you all can let me know separately.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Good
thank
luck.
you.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.